From a flightless simulator at Ferris Air to a momentous meeting in an alley to the complex mind of an architect to every far sector in space and to the brilliance of the central power battery on Oa. This is the podcast that covers the adventures of all of your favorite ring slingers. This is the Emerald Echo with your hosts, Adam and the Emerald Enthusiast.
Welcome to another episode of Emerald Echo, a Green Lantern podcast and vidcast. As always, I'm your host, Adam, and with me is the Emerald Enthusiast himself, Donnie. Donnie, how's it going?
What's up, everyone? It's the man whose ring runs on fanboy energy. It is the Emerald Enthusiast, and we're back with another episode of the Emerald Echo.
Indeed we are, and we've got a lot of comics to cover. We've gone from one Green Lantern comic to we have three comics to cover, but 4 issues in total. So that'll be the bulk of the conversation in the second half of the show. But as we always do on the show, Donnie, when there is news regarding the Green Lanterns in any form of media, whether it's comics, movies, television, or otherwise, we discuss it and share our thoughts on it. And as everybody who listens to this show or watches it is aware, the HBO live-action Lantern series from DC Studios is currently filming. And while they're currently filming, we are being apprised of continual casting additions. Now, that doesn't mean that these casting additions are just happening as they're being told to us. It just means that they've probably been cast already, and we're just being told of it when we're being told of it. Is usually how it goes.
They're throwing breadcrumbs out for us to lead us to the show.
Right, and so we do have a few additions, 4 to be specific. We have Jason Ritter, who is playing Billy McCone, who is the son of Garrett Dillahunt's character. I know who Jason Ritter is simply because he is the son of John Ritter, the late John Ritter, who was on Three's Company, and I think was his most popular work. We have another actor by the name of Chris Coy, who's playing a character by the name of Waylon Sanders. The interesting thing about this character is that the blurb on the character in the trade says that that's not actually who he is. Like, his identity is unknown.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so if you don't recognize that name, it's okay, because you're not supposed to, because it's whoever he actually is a secret. Although he seems to be just from the brief description, he may have some sort of abilities, or he may be an alien of some sort. Just from what I gather from the description.
Well, so, and obviously they're going to want to keep some of this under wraps. If they name every character, that's going to give away some storylines, and sure. They want to control what is getting out there. And you and I talked last episode about why that's a good thing, that they don't throw everything at us, and they're not confirming every casting and every storyline, because that takes away some of the mystery and some of the intrigue.
100%. And you had talked. We had both talked about possibility that this show would feature flashbacks.
Yes.
And the casting I'm about to mention now basically confirms that, especially where it concerns Jon Stewart, because his parents have been cast.
Mm-hmm.
Both the young version of his parents and the older versions of his parents have been cast. So we have an actress by the name of Jasmine Cephas Jones playing the young version of Bernadette Stewart, and we have actress Nicole Ari Parker playing the older / possibly present day version of Bernadette Stewart. And then we have, let me see, J. Alphonse Nicholson playing young John Stewart Sr., and then we have Sherman Augustus playing the older version of John Stewart Sr. So again, there is going to be some flashbacks clearly here. And I really get a sense of the majority of the origin aspects for this show will probably be centered around John Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
Although I also have read, I can't remember which trade mentioned this in a blurb, but I think it was one of the trades, that it will be referenced the past relationship of mentor-mentee between Sinestro and Hal Jordan will be mentioned.
Right, I saw that as well. Yeah.
So, but again, I don't know much about these actors outside of Jason Ritter. So I can't say in terms of their acting. I can't comment on their acting ability. But again, when you look at the people involved in the show in terms of the creative forces, I'm going to trust their ability to put a cast together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, what about you, Donnie? What's your thoughts on all this?
Well, my thoughts are, immediately trying to draw a parallel with the comics. So we know from both the most recent story with War Journal that John's father was an alcoholic and was abusive. That was also in Volume 3. I don't know if they're going to go that route or not. Shirley Stewart, John's mom from the comics, was obviously a huge part of War Journal. She is now deceased and sort of part of his ring. My guess is that they're only going to draw loosely on John's past there. I don't know that they're going to go that route based on these castings. However, I do like the idea of whether it's John or Hal showing them in their developmental stages and showing exactly how they arrived at being the unusual beings of will that wield these rings. Because a Green Lantern personality is more, it's not an accident when they get a ring. We talk about a lot of heroes that they have some kind of accident, they get superpowers and they have to grow into those powers, whereas a Green Lantern is selected for their innate ability to use this weapon and this tool that is a Green Lantern ring. So I like the idea that we're going to see the building blocks of John Stewart's personality and why he has been chosen among all of these beings in the universe to wield the most powerful weapon.
Right, and it's interesting with Green Lantern because it's not like, Spider-Man was bitten as a teenager, so you get the teenage aspect, and then he has to grow into being a hero. John Stewart is an adult.
Right.
So the growth aspect is different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you show that? You show that by delving into his backstory, what made him the man that is ultimately chosen, like you're saying. So that is going to be very interesting.
Now we would have that dynamic if they ever choose to portray Kyle on this show, because he does have that journey of getting the ring and not really being ready for it.
Sure, he's close.
But John and Hal were already heroes when they got their rings.
He's closer to being a Peter Parker type.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
He is older than Peter when he gets the ring. One last thing on the mother character, which is Bernadette in this show, as opposed to Shirley. Although Shirley could be her middle name, we don't know. For the show's purposes, I mean. But the description of the character, the way they describe the character, is very similar to the character we've come to know from the books. So the characteristics of his mother are the same, even though her name may be different, right?
Right. Yeah.
And the fact that her name is different or might be different doesn't really bother me that much. And this may not be the best example to use, but the fact that Batgirl in Batman and Robin was called Barbara Wilson really wasn't the problem with that character, although it should have been Barbara Gordon, just because why the hell not? But what I'm saying is Barbara Wilson wasn't the problem with Batman and Robin's iteration of Batgirl. It was the way she was written, not her name. But I digress. That's a whole another podcast. I've covered that. I've agonized over that since 1997. I moved on. But anyway, so the one of those things news-wise that I want to cover that pertains to Green Lantern is that there was a new sneak peek for Superman, which
yes,
it was like 5 minutes, but the first 2.5 to 3 were it was an expanded look at the Superman crypto scene.
Yes,
which has nothing to do with Green Lantern, but crypto is really cute, and I love all the cool stuff in the fortress. You know, Nick and I are gonna probably dissect that next week, and we'll make a hour podcast off of 2.5 minutes. Sure. But that's the way we do things here. But the rest of the 5-minute preview was an expansion on the teaser we had already seen. The Green Lantern portion of note is that two things. When Guy points his ring at the window and I guess makes a construct to like hide or close off the window, whatever he's doing. There's sound emanating from now because they've added sound effects and stuff. Mm-hmm. That was cool. And also remember in the teaser when Superman and Lois are kind of making out, and behind them is that alien thing that's in the sky.
Yes.
Shooting a laser beam. Well, in this expanded small portion of that scene, we now see a green beam firing back at this thing, which is clearly what I believe to be Guy outside fighting it. So look, from Superman's point of view, Guy's out there handling it. I'm going to spend more time with Lois. I'm going to do the same thing. But it's nice to know that Guy is involved in that scene as well, is my point. So we get a little bit of expansion of Guy's involvement. And that's the other thing regarding Lanterns that was revealed by Entertainment Weekly, that in fact, Guy Gardner will appear in Lanterns.
Yes, and like I said, the more the better, and the more that we can get this panoramic look at the Green Lantern Corps and the universe that in that they operate in, the better. I think that gives them that'll give viewers the idea more so than we saw back in the 2011 movie of just how massive this story is. But going back to that trailer, I've got to say, since the first trailer came out, and when I saw Superman say, "Take me home," I've been wondering, I was like, is he going to drag him all the way to Smallville? Is that what he was doing? Now it makes sense.
That would have been funny.
That would have been hilarious.
Can you imagine crossing state lines?
Oceans and things like that.
in a 2-hour movie, an hour is just him dragging Superman to Smallville. That would have been funny. But yeah, it was like, and I gotta say, like, I think I mentioned this before. I have an irrational fear just because of something in my childhood with dogs. It's not that I don't like them. It's not that I'm mean to them. It's just they caused me fear. So if I was a superhero that took kind of Batman's route to being a superhero, I'd be Dogman, which would not be fun. So I'm not going to do that. But all that to say is there are like 3 dogs in my life that I've actually like gotten along okay with or liked. Now again, liked is the wrong word because I don't hate dogs. I'm far from it. But it's my brother's dog because I kind of have to get used to it and have to get along with it. My uncle's dog had a dog that I liked when I was a kid that I used to wrestle with, and like we used to wrestle like WWE style headlocks and things like that. I would never hurt it, but and then now it's Crypto. Like I love that damn dog. He's adorable.
Well, I know they're going to sell a bunch of plushes of that dog. I mean, they're going to make bank on that.
I'm gonna have to buy one for my niece because she's already like, I want one, and I'm like, all right, well, there goes money. But so I think I'm getting really excited now, Donnie, because at least on the Lanterns front, because of the fact that it is now it's real now, like it's filming. We've seen tangible evidence that it's filming, like it's a real thing now, and now's the time to really start getting excited, I think. So we will keep you posted on that.
The wheels are definitely turning. I've had lots of reservations in the past, and I've told you that many times. But with each update, it seems like this is a done deal, and that since it ties into what is the flagship program of this new universe being, the Superman movie, I've got to believe that it's going to happen.
Yeah, look, in terms of what's going to happen, what's not going to happen. Obviously, the hope is that Superman does well, and given the reactions to the trailer so far from the sane fan, not the nut jobs that we won't mention because they're
right. Oh my gosh!
but the sane ones, most fans have been on board with what we've seen so far. So there's every reason to believe that Superman will do well enough to keep the universe going, at the very least. But worst case scenario, the projects that are pretty much confirmed to be happening are Superman, Supergirl, Peacemaker season 2, and Lanterns. Because by the time Superman comes out, they'll be pretty much, those four will be pretty much in the can.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense that even if the worst case scenario happens with Superman, they'll just put them out and then cut their losses. But so at least we're going to get season 1 of Lanterns. That's pretty much assured. But again, hopefully Superman does well and everything else does well and the universe keeps going. That's the hope.
Yes.
That's the positive outlook at this point, because why be negative at this point? There's no point to be. Again, there's a whole swath of people in their parents' basement on the internet that do that, and they can do that, and who cares because they're irrelevant. But, the point is, get excited. Lanterns is coming. And
Right.
we can finally say that with confidence. But unless there's anything else, that's pretty much all the news we have.
I do want to say one thing, and this is obviously common knowledge at this point, but want to say rest in peace to Val Kilmer,
Yes.
who was, the star, obviously the titular star of Batman Forever. You and I have talked about this. It was a big news back in the day when Michael Keaton passed the mantle along. But I thought that Val did an admirable job in that movie. I thought that it was a fitting third installment to that franchise. Now, Batman and Robin, that's a whole different story. But I really did like Batman Forever. And, Val Kilmer, everything that I've seen of the guy, he seemed to be a genuine person. And I know that his health wasn't good in recent years. So rest in peace, sir. And thank you for your contribution to the legacy of the DC Universe.
For me, I will say this: I like Batman Forever a lot. It is underrated, I think, in some circles, and often maligned with its sequel, which it's lumped in, which it shouldn't be. And I think Val Kilmer, if you just look at his performance, he had a really good balance of between Batman and Bruce Wayne. And he really sort of was able to play a Bruce Wayne that was comfortable in the persona of projecting the billionaire playboy, whereas, Keane took it a different direction where his Bruce Wayne was a recluse and kind of uncomfortable with being Bruce Wayne, whereas Kilmer seemed like, I'm comfortable with putting on the facade of billionaire playboy, right? And just looking at him physically and height wise, and he did have a lot of the Batman physical characteristics, height, the look. So and so, I said this on Facebook, is that he may have only played Batman once, but once you put on that cape and cowl, he's Batman forever. And
right.
I
still have one of the crystal mugs from McDonald's. I don't know if you remember those back in the day.
So I have them, and let's just say my nephew, who will be disowned in my broke them, so he will be disowned. But yes, indeed, the afterlife now has several Batman protecting Gotham City up there, and Val Kilmer is one of them, and I hope that he rests well and knows that he will never be forgotten, at least especially in the DC Comics fandom, for his contributions to
definitely
Batman. So rest well, sir, and thank you for the memories. All that being said, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back on the other side talking Green Lantern comics. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Don't go anywhere.
What's up, everyone? It's the Emerald Enthusiast.
For all of your multiverse viewing and listening needs, check out our shows, which include Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, Power Rangers, the Marvel Universe, and the DC Universe, including the Emerald Echo podcast. You can check us out on Podbean, and remember to subscribe right here on YouTube. That's the Multiverse Musings Podcast Network. From the first podcast to the last. And we're back.
Indeed we are. And Donnie, the days of only having one Green Lantern comic are over, and I'm happy for it. And it just means we have a lot more work to do, which is fine. Because talking about Green Lantern or any comic book universe is not really work. It's fun. And that's what we're here to have. And so let's have some fun and talk Green Lantern comics.
All right, we're going to hop on to Green Lantern number 20, of course, written by Jeremy Adams. And we'll have the creative team in the description below when this comes out. However, we saw in the last issue a person, an alien wielding red lantern energy, rage energy, and this being didn't seem to have any ring. This wasn't a chosen member of the Red Lantern Corps. Well, in this issue, we get the backstory of Erastus the Blacksmith.
Yeah.
And I will say this for Jeremy Adams, that he condensed this into a few pages, but it gave you a good snapshot into why this being was so angry. And it was actually very understandable.
Absolutely. I felt really bad for him.
Because you see Erastus here, not only does he get a bad deal from a sword that he is making, so he gets shafted on that. And I was like, I had to choose my words carefully there. I'm like, because the way you could say that, it would be kind of crude, and I don't want to do.
Right, but you never know. But depending on the scenario, but in this case, it's a bad thing.
And it seems like within his culture too, that he is set up with a partner, at kind of an arranged marriage type of thing, but she does not respect him. And she is stepping out on him and also making fun of him because of it. And so publicly.
He really is getting shafted then.
Exactly.
In more ways than one.
Yes. And so he has kind of humiliation at every turn. And at some point here in his life, it just erupts. And you can see that the hammers that he owns are then infused with this Red Lantern energy. By the way, the artwork here is just amazing.
Yeah,
I love the various motion panels. The action panels are just outstanding. And also note that in minute detail, like the aura around Erastus here is different than you see that of Hal Jordan. It's kind of crackling and looking, kind of erratic, which denote the type of energy that is surrounding him.
Yeah, that's it's very appropriate for, the hate, the Red Lantern energy. So that kind of, those small details make a big difference.
Mm-hmm. And so this picks back up then with Erastus fighting Hal, and Hal takes the angle of trying to calm him down because he doesn't understand the situation either about how this being is somehow wielding Red Lantern energy.
It's kind of new for Hal to take the approach of, let me try talking to this guy and calming him down, as opposed to action first and then thinking about it later, right?
Well, let's just say this version of Hal. Now, let's not talk about the original, how he and Carol were interacting in the early issues when I say this. This seems to be more mature Hal, at least in the way that he operates kind of as a policeman, okay?
Yeah. Relationship-wise, maybe not, but in his job, yes. Yeah.
But this seems to be, more experienced in understanding that not every situation calls for, fist and fire and fury, and then try to questions afterward.
Right,
He realizes that something is going on here, and he's trying to deal with it. But he also comes upon this massacre,
yeah.
and we see that the being that Erastus dealt with, he has killed the person that he made the sword for.
Mhm.
So now the scene cuts to the source wall, and we're back with Odyssey and Kyle and Superboy.
I love this team, by the way. It's really fun.
I've got to tell you, my favorite my favorite panel in this, and I love the theatrical illusions that Jeremy Adams threw in here, and the art, by the way, just
The
awesome.
Indiana Jones reference, you mean?
The Indiana Jones. He's like, we're raiding the Promethean temple, and he has the Indiana Jones hat and the whip, and I like it.
The best part about it was, as I was reading this and looking at the imagery, I was legitimately humming the John Williams Indiana Jones score as I was reading it.
And I like how Khan's just like nerd.
Well, I think Khan is trying to impress.
Well, he's trying to impress Odyssey, who I really like her addition here. It adds a new element to their relationship, and like the way, and when I say that, I'm talking about Khan and Kyle, the way that they're operating here.
Yeah, you know what's funny about that is that I'm surprised. I'm still surprised now, 2 issues deep into their inclusion. Miles' maturity and the fact that he's Connor is the one that's all smitten, right?
Right.
And Kyle is the reasonable adult one.
Right.
Whereas years of reading Kyle, you and I know that he will, he is the libido of a teenager constantly, and so it's surprising, but a welcome evolution of the character.
Yes, and like I said, I like that. I will take one little issue here in that nobody draws Kyle's costume anymore with the white section on the back.
And you want the white section back?
And I want the white section on the back because that's how it was originally. And I know it's a small thing, and I know it nitpicks, but come on.
That's like me with the S on the cape. Like, it needs to be there. Don't give me this stupid nonsense. The CGI can't handle it. Bull. But I digress. So I feel you. I understand that right.
Now, on the positive side, when we go back to the confrontation with Hal and Erastus, I really like this Roman soldier uniform that he makes, that Hal Jordan makes. That is a beautiful image there. That one panel.
In my head, I was like, okay, so we've gone from Indiana Jones to the Troy movie. We're just going through genres now. It's good.
It's like the Gladiator. So we're off to the Russell Crowe kick here.
Yeah.
But so Hal continues to try to talk Erasmus down, and again, the artwork here, really, really beautiful. But Erastus cannot control this energy, and it consumes him more and more to the point where he explodes. And I don't mean that he explodes in a ball of offense. I mean, he actually explodes. He detonates.
I will say.
Well, it does. I like Jeremy Adams' idea here that if someone is not chosen to wield a ring and wield a certain emotion, this is something that is overwhelming them. Because if you experience some type of emotion without really, any safeguards, can you not feel overwhelmed by that emotion?
I can attest to this explosion of anger. I mean, all you have to do is watch the Leafs in the playoffs, and there it is. So I totally get it. Luckily, I haven't exploded yet, but there's
Hopefully,
still.
This is the year all will be well, as St. Walker says.
You've seen the greatest year. I've been saying this is the year for far too long, and I'm just ready for it to be. Just do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like that little twist that he literally exploded with anger. Was this the issue talking about there? Was this the issue where or is it next Green Lantern issue where Hal creates a sumo wrestler, if I was correct?
No, that's this issue that
Yeah,
he created.
yeah,
That was part of what he was trying to do, was kind of hold Erastus as at
yeah.
bay and just
Yeah.
trying to calm him down, but it
Because
didn't work.
I don't know if this is intentional or not, but I instantly thought, because of the wrestling fan in me, I instantly thought Yokozuna.
Oh
And
yeah.
it wouldn't shock me if Jeremy Adams did too, because we know he's a wrestling fan. So if we ever get him back on here, I want to ask him, was that supposed to be Yokozuna? Like, did you write in, basically draw Yokozuna without getting copyright struck or whatever? Because that's what I thought of when I first.
That was good times when Yokozuna dropped on Hulk Hogan and
I
yeah,
still,
killed
I still
Hulkamania. That was good. Anyway,
I kept on by as soon as I saw him. Oh,
so back at the temple, things are not going well. I do like this this splash page here of Kyle creating this.
the hand cart there. They
Yeah,
were all,
that part,
that
and
was so cool.
which is, again, keeping with the theme of Indiana Jones, and it looks great. But they do get this piece of the source, and so they fly back to the Interceptor, or at least they are trying to fly back to the Interceptor. And who is there? But we get Starbreaker and Sorrow.
Yeah, the sorrow.
The Sorrow.
Yeah, we gotta emphasize that, because he's the miserable version of the Rock, apparently. But
And so, in the words of Teddy Long, it's time for a tag team match.
nobody's going one-on-one with the Undertaker in this scenario, though. But the fact that by the end of this fight, our villains end up with the orb,
Yes.
goes a long way into continuing the narrative that these guys are a threat, which is what we've been built up to believe all this time. So I'm glad they actually got away with the orb, because had Kyle and his crew been able to, defeat them and, abscond away with it, you've just jobbed out. You've just made these two guys the Brooklyn Brawler, right?
Right.
And that's not what you want when you've been
the Mulkey brothers.
Yeah, and that's not what you want when you've built up these villains to be a formidable threat. So
Right.
I like the way it was handled.
Yeah, and so this story was entitled "The Life and Death of Erastus the Blacksmith." Writer Jeremy Adams, artist Jack Herbert, colorist Romulo Fajardo Jr., letterer Dave Sharp, and cover artist Ariel Colon.
Are we rating these individually, or how do you want to?
It's up to you, buddy. We can rate. I actually have very little in terms of criticism.
Same here. It was really good, really well done.
In any of these, really. So
I thought the pacing was well done for this one, and the fact that they gave us an origin for Erastus there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we had all this action after that. So I thought the pacing was well done. The art and the creativity with the constructs was top notch once again. And like I said, I'm really growing to like the dynamic, specifically between Kyle and his makeshift team.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a 5 out of 5 on both the writing and artistic fronts for me.
Well, I'm going to agree there. Again, and even with my nitpicks about Kyle's costume, there was really nothing to dislike here.
Yeah, I agree.
And again, we are getting answers to a lot of these questions. And that was a big one, is, how are people manifesting these powers with the emotional spectrum being so erratic, with it being fractured, as we saw in Fractured Spectrum. That's how we see these beings manifesting these powers, but they can't control them, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because they're not being chosen, they're not getting trained, it's all of a sudden just there. Absolutely. And so even though Erastus, dies in this issue, it still serves a purpose of moving the narrative forward, and I like that.
Yeah, me too. It's everything's. I'm okay with the pace that we're getting answers with, and I'm just loving the overall story. Like I've got nothing to complain about. So it's just a good time every time I read this, and that's all I can ask.
I just love going to the comic shop now and knowing that there's going to be a couple of different Green Lantern titles there now.
Yeah, it's
Not only Green Lantern and Green Lantern Corps, but we also have Green Lantern Dark, and we're going to talk about Absolute Green Lantern #1 at the end of this podcast.
In my case, I like I like getting the email every time I get a new Green Lantern comic in my digital library, and it's more. I get that email with the Green Lantern in the title more than once a month now, so that's nice. I like it.
Mm-hmm. And I have added so many variant covers to my collection.
I can just imagine.
I'm going to need some new boxes.
I'm not shocked by that. All right, so I guess Green Lantern Corps is next, right?
Yes, Green Lantern Corps also got multiple variant covers of this.
You don't say.
There's actually, I don't know, for people who are watching this on a different platform. So here is the cover. There's actually a variant cover where it's like the acetate and it lifts off, and so like the graffiti lifts off.
Okay, cool. That's
and
cool.
you see the image underneath, but a hilarious image, by the way. So
that is really cool. Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah. So this opens up with the group of lanterns that I mean here, lanterns as well as Hawkwoman, and we see Razor and John and Kilowog in hyperspace en route to Thanagar. And we talked about this in the last, in Green Lantern Corps #1, the last issue, that we're getting the dynamic here of Hawkwoman and John Stewart being reunited, and John is a little bit at a loss for words because all of a sudden she's kind of been dropped into the middle of the story. And I really like what Jeremy Adams, his the first quote from John. He's like, "Hawkwoman, how are you?"
Considering the Thanagar has been destroyed, not so well.
Well, we're going to get right to that. That's kind of the big thing. There's been so many things happening with like the Green Lantern mythos, but Thanagar being destroyed in the middle of like all this story, that's a pretty big happening. So
it's now joined Krypton in the
yeah, exactly. And so that's where they end up, is the ruins of Thanagar. And I mean, it has been decimated. It's like more than 50% of the planet has been blown up.
Insane.
And they don't exactly know like what to do at this point. Like they're all kind of at a loss. However, they won't be for very long because there is a ship right in that orbit, and they realize they have to deal with it. By the way, this ship is intricately drawn. I really like that.
It really is, and it's pretty big in scope.
Yeah.
In size.
And so who is on the inside? And I mean, oh my gosh, I wanted to leap for joy when I saw this because it's been a long time since we have seen Atrocitus.
I just love him as a villain, so I'm like, I'm happy he's back, even though he's a villain.
So we get Atrocitus, Dexter is with him, and interestingly, Atrocitus is wearing some type of containment suit. So, and that's how that comes into play, because he is still controlling on some level a type of Red Lantern energy, and he can still manifest constructs.
Yes, he can. Which makes sense, because he's the...
Well, and I'm going to give Jeremy Adams credit here, too. The way that he goes about this, about how Atrocitus is doing this, it makes sense, because he actually sort of has a power source for this. And we see that later in this issue.
Yes.
But anyway, so the Green Lantern crew, they sneak aboard the ship, and we get this really cool scene. And by the way, I saw a lot of people are just like, oh, that's such, daytime soap opera, or that's, something you see on Disney Channel. It's so stupid. I thought it was hilarious because Hawkwoman and John end up in this closet face to face.
Nothing wrong. Yeah, listen, we saw that in The Amazing Spider-Man.
It's a timeless class, and I just, the look on her face and the look on his face is, there is a lot of backstory between them here.
A little tension's still there, and
a lot of attraction.
Yeah.
And it's funny. It's after Dexter runs past it, and she's like, they're gone, and John's like, yeah, but I don't want to move yet.
Well, yeah, I mean, there could be, yeah, I wouldn't either. If I was John Cena, again, this is why I'm not a superhero, because I understand, like we just talked about. I understand Superman's desire not to go out there and fight that thing while, hey, guy's got a handle. I'm with Lois. She's hot. I'm going to stay here. Same with John Stewart. I get it. If John Stewart could make a construct have a pen in that moment, he probably would have clicked it.
So I mentioned the power source, and
Yeah.
here we get this full page splash of Zalias Zox, and he is hooked up to the ship, and it looks like not by choice.
Yes.
That he's just been kind of thrown into this device that is powering the ship.
The way I like seeing Dexter back, the cat.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Which, as I was reading it, I'm thinking, can you imagine live action Dexter meeting Crypto? Can you imagine that interaction? Good lord.
Oh yeah.
And
There's another character. If they want to sell plushes,
yeah,
they want to sell costume. Can you imagine a Halloween where all these kids are running around in like Dexter costumes? I would love it. I would love it so much.
Dexter and Crypto would be all Halloween. That'd be good.
So next, outside of the ship, we see that, and I also like the coloring here is something else that this has become consistent. Whenever the Sorrow shows up, the word balloons go gray.
Yes.
The word balloons are gray, and the font is white, and so you know the Sorrow is near.
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah, I really like that. And we see a clash between the Sorrow and Kilowog. And I also like that the sound it says is smash when Kilowog fights back. And I was like, oh, Kilowog, smash. Yeah. And so, yeah, I like this battle. Back in the ship, this device in which that Zalias Zox is in is made of nth metal, and it says the nth metal is transferring the energy to the ship,
which is very interesting.
Mm-hmm. And then out of nowhere, who shows up but Atrocitus, and he's instantly he makes this construct axe and he attacks, and still very formidable. He's able to take on Hawkwoman and John Stewart at the same time. By the way, the action here is just amazing. Like there's this one panel here where John is making a shield, and Atrocitus is attacking from one direction, and at the same time he has Hawkwoman behind him, and this is really cool.
There's a big gun as well at one point, wasn't there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you see,
like I said, these artists, the toughest thing on a Green Lantern book, I would imagine, is the constructs coming up with them.
And specifically Atrocitus's constructs here, they come out of this containment unit. You can see the energy flowing out of the chest piece, and he makes like a mace and a shield to fight off Hawkwoman and John Stewart.
Yeah, it just amazes me what these artists can do with their imagination, where the constructs are concerned.
Speaking of the art here too, I really like the way that the Sorrow's energy is portrayed. It's not like Green Lantern energy. It's not like Red Lantern energy. It's a kind of this flowing cloud-like energy. It's like, kind of clouds of despair. All you have to think about is some time in your life where you have felt sad. And how
it does, yeah.
Exactly. The day feels it feels like there's clouds all around you. Your mind is clouded, your heart is clouded, and that's how this is here. But Kilowog surprisingly is fighting back efficiently. I thought that maybe because of the explosion of Balavax Vic that he would be especially vulnerable to the Sorrow's power, but that does not seem to be the case.
Right. And I just like seeing, by the way, the two mainline books interacting, like they've done it in such a way where I think you can, if you were a fan choosing to read one book over the other, you would be okay, but it's also nice for fans like us that are reading both to have sorrow, interspersed between both.
Yes. And so this ends with Atrocitus being alerted that the on the outside the remnants of Thanagar are falling away, and we see this giant nth metal sphere. It looks like a big golden egg, and that's how the issue ends. And it says, "Next issue, what lies within."
I know what's in there. The
gobbledygooker.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Come on, Jeremy. You have the chance to do the funniest thing.
That's exactly where my mind went. And there's a bunch of people.
Me too, yeah.
And the 25 people that are going to listen to this podcast are going to be like, what is the gobbledygooker? Because
they're going to look it up right after this podcast and be like, what are they talking about?
What is the gobbledygooker? Yeah. Again, no issues with the writing there, or the art there. It was really beautiful, and
a 5 on both fronts for me. But let's be honest, they had me when they brought back Atrocitus.
Oh yeah, like I said, I love seeing him again. Yeah. I would love for, while he has the license, McFarlane to make me an Atrocitus in that containment suit, but
yeah, that'd be nice. I still want. Since we mentioned Val Kilmer, I want the Panther suit. Everybody keeps doing the Sonar suit. I want the Panther suit with the yellow oval. Come on, McFarlane. Who else has the license? Mattel. Whichever one of you. So one of you do the Panther suit, damn it.
McFarlane has the license through I want to say either summer or fall 2026. Yeah. So we're
either McFarlane or when Mattel takes over. Somebody do the damn Panther suit.
I would agree there. By the way, did you see that they actually have there's some photos floating around of some McFarlane Superman figures from the movie?
I want everything. I'm like, yeah, okay. All of it. Everything.
I've got to have the Green Lanterns. But anyway.
I don't know where to put any of this, but I want it all. Let's just say that.
Okay, so we're going to hop onto now Green Lantern number 21, which picks up at the source wall, and it is Starbreaker and the Sorrow battling Kyle and Khan, and also Odyssey is there, and she still has the little sphere that we're talking about from the source wall.
Yeah, she stole it back. She did this invisible trick and stole it back. But then her emotions get her sorrow gets the better of her, and the sorrow is able to pick her up.
And I really like the way that she does this. It initially seems like she has disappeared, but what it actually has happened here is that she's using some kind of tech to refract light around her, and he's able to figure that out and use his powers to surround her and figure out where she is.
Yeah. I thought that was really cool. And I felt really bad for her because again, the art is so good that you could see the pain, the emotion, right? Like it was seeping through the page. That's how good the art was.
Also, major story point here. So as she is being affected by the sorrow, she again consistently here we see the gray word balloons. She says, "Gone, they're all gone." And the sorrow says, "Don't worry, soon those feelings will fade like all emotions will." So it sounds like, his end game, and presumably that of Starbreaker 2, is to wipe out all emotions.
Oh, isn't that lovely? That's a lovely thought.
Well, I won't even mention the Guardians' perspective on that in the past, but we'll move on for now.
They're problematic in and of themselves, but this tag team match is interrupted. There's a
run-in
from how he comes in like the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania. What was it, 8?
Yeah, that was WrestleMania 8 when he came in to help Hulk Hogan against Papa Shango and Sid Justice.
Papa Shango do his thing. It's what I say, but I digress. But he comes in like the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 8,
so Starbreaker and Sorrow, they're able to make off with the sphere. They're able to vanish. and Hal Jordan comes in and he's able to at least turn the tide so Kyle and Khan don't get crushed by a gigantic Starbreaker. But not only do they make off with that, of course, Odyssey is left in just this terribly a state of despair.
Yes.
And Khan goes over and picks her up and says, she's like, "Can we go now?" And he's like, "Yeah, I think we can." Really beautiful art there when he just kind of scoops her up and shows a lot of compassion to her.
Yeah, it's very much like I mean, he's channeling the Superman part of his DNA there. Whereas when he was mid-fight and ready to kick somebody's ass, it was very much Lex Luthor on a rage trip. So he's really channeling both his clone parents on that front.
So now the story turns back to Oa, and it says Green Lantern Precinct Prime, and it looks like all of the various lanterns, as well as two of the Guardians, they're all gathered around this table. We see Simon, we see Jessica, we see Kelly Quintella, and interestingly enough here too, Kelly seems to be struggling. She mentions headaches. And she seems to be struggling from some kind of physical malady. And she's like, they're okay. But there's some concern about her health. And I wonder if the gauntlet is acting up because of the problems with the emotional spectrum.
Well, also remember that all the stuff that she's been through, right? So, she was captured and she was experimented on. So who knows?
Right. Yeah.
What's causing? To quote Ric Flair, what's causing all this, right?
What's causing all this?
Yeah.
Well,
so
Ellie seems to be very concerned about her.
Yeah. But yeah, and again, I like that relationship that those two have formed. That friendship kind of thing. It's kind of cool. So, but yeah, it's. I like that we have a scene where all the lanterns are conferring as a police force would, right, on a case. Like I dig that. It's a small little thing, but I like that, and I like the way they describe who was it, Starbreaker as a as a vampire, as a
like an emotional vampire.
emotional vampire. I like that description. That was pretty cool.
Which is especially dangerous for light wielders who their power is based on emotion.
Yeah. But it's a cool description for him, and it makes sense. And what do you make? Are you as intrigued as I am about the idea of rebuilding a lantern?
The various power batteries. Yeah. I mean, I have questions about how they're going to do that, because it's not a simple thing of simply building the edifice of the battery. They have to be able to control those specific types of energies.
And then my question would be, if they can build those, would the original, like, would the characters that have now become Green Lantern, would they revert back to their original lantern type?
I mean, how would that go? And I can maybe see Kyle with his limited abilities as the White Lantern right now, if he were to tap into that power and maybe be able to pull the various color energies apart. But can he do that? I mean, we don't know. He has not done that as the White Lantern in the past.
It's gonna be an interesting dynamic for sure.
Yeah, he can cycle through the various abilities, but we've never seen him be able to separate them and control them in that manner.
It's going to be an interesting story point to watch develop for sure.
Also want to give Jeremy Adams credit here for the way that he has this written, and also the lettering here. When the scene turns to the Watchtower, we see Carol and Hal see one another. Also, Mr. Terrific is in this scene. And as Hal and Carol see one another, she's obviously busy, and she's like, "I'll be back soon, Kay, love you, bye." And it's all like one it's all one word to emphasize that she's distracted and she's just kind of blowing Hal off.
Yeah.
And Hal's like, wait, Star Sapphire, wait up.
And then I like how that continues where he joins her on, I guess, a Justice League rescue mission.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole time, as they're apprehending this villain, they're having this conversation, and it's just like the villain seems like the third wheel in this date kind of conversation. It was pretty funny.
This is a minor villain. I think he's a minor Superman villain, if I remember correctly. Yeah. I thought he was dead, but I don't know. I think that the Crisis of Infinite Earths kind of reset whatever people want to do, whatever writers want to do.
Yeah, I think it's so flimsy anyway.
Yeah, so he's here and he is pulling this heist, and Hal and Star Sapphire show up, and Hal is obviously hungry because he's making constructs of donuts.
He's like, it's the first thing I thought of. Also, when I saw that, I kind of wanted a donut. I don't know about you, but I wanted a donut.
The power of suggestion, yeah.
It really is. It's pretty bad. You're watching, side note, has nothing to do with anything, but talk about the power of suggestion. Mm-hmm. Every time that I'm watching Daredevil on Disney Plus, because we have the ad-supported version of Disney, because we come straight with our cable package.
Oh, okay.
And they're doing this advertisement for a chicken burger from Mary Brown's.
Wow.
In conjunction with Daredevil, and every commercial is this burger, and I'm like, damn, I'm hungry, and I just ate an hour ago, and this is not good. I have to have one of those burgers before the series.
Psychological warfare.
And I have no willpower. This is why I'm not a Green Lantern. See.
So they're able to capture the Mind Bomber, but then a couple of other characters show up. We see Hector Hammond and Mr. Bones.
Hector Hammond working for the U.S. government.
Yes.
It's so on brand right now.
The Department of Extra Normal Operation.
Yeah, it's not even funny how on brand it is. Somebody that probably shouldn't be in the position he's in, but it's there. Yeah.
That would be a different podcast, but yeah.
It's so on brand. That's all I'm going to say. I'm like, we know who did this hire.
Yeah. So the scene turns to Reach Outpost Omega, and we're back with Odyssey and Khan and Kyle. They are in the Interceptor. And I like when they go exploring here too. The construct that Kyle creates looks like Han Solo's blaster from Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, Jeremy Adams, I'm like, he's really kind of on brand here with all of the theatrical references.
He had his John Williams playlist going, is my guess, because first we got Indiana Jones and now this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they do find something here, more specifically, someone. This turns out to be Dan Garrett, a.k.a. Silver Scarab. We don't get an explanation as to why he's here. However, we do get the reasoning behind Mr. Bones and Hector Hammond wanting Mind Bomber. And they take him to an underground bunker that's operated by the DEO. And I saw some fans online who were like, yeah, this was a little too gross, a little too graphic for the comic.
So much worse than this.
Oh my gosh. I thought it was great because Jeremy Adams with this issue, he set us up with the humor and he ended with the horror. And I thought it was...
But it's not that gruesome though. It's like I've seen worse.
Yeah, some people were just like, oh, no, that's gross. It doesn't really fit with the story. And I'm like, no, I thought it was fine.
I've come to the conclusion, people on the internet just like to complain about nothing.
Yeah.
Is what I come to the conclusion about.
Yeah.
Especially in the space that we're dealing with.
Now, if you want real grossness, we get in this issue confirmation of why Hal Jordan is one of the most fearless heroes in the DC universe because he eats gas station ramen.
Yeah, that's disturbing. I was thoroughly disturbed.
And he's like worth it, and I'm like, no, I don't think so.
It's not. Yeah, that was gross. Yeah.
And so they pick up Dove. It just says elsewhere, and so it's at this point it's Hal and Star Sapphire and Dove
Yeah.
who are together.
And again, I like that they bring her into the equation too. It's like
Yeah.
like we're getting to see a wide variety of characters interacting with the Green Lantern. It just and what I think that does is it highlights the Green Lantern's importance to the greater DCU, which is always a welcome, occurrence.
And what they've done here, it's been their mission is to find out what has happened with Mind Bomber. And the last page, we see that Hector Hammond is doing these experiments, and he has opened up Mind Bomber's his head and exposed his brain. And he's obviously using this to enhance his own intelligence, because he kind of looks, or he's starting to look more like the classic Hector Hammond. He's starting to be more deformed here.
Yeah.
But I guess that turns some people off. I think it's great.
That's cool. And I mean, that's Hector Hammond, right? And also,
yeah, exactly.
Again, surprised that the U.S. government is up to nefarious activity. I'm not.
So they arrive on the scene, and presumably that's going to be where the next issue opens up, is the fate of Starbreaker. Mind Bomber.
You think Jeremy Adams' research for putting Hector Hammond in the government was? I'm just going to turn on the CNN and see what they're talking about today. That's what I'm going to do.
And I really like that, Jeremy Adams has pulled some unfamiliar characters in with these familiar characters. Yeah. We have all of these, lanterns that we all know and love, but he's pulled some villains from other places.
But he's also bringing in, he brings Atrocitus back. He brings Hector Hammond. Two guys we haven't seen in a while. It's really cool. It's really fun.
So and like I said, I like, and I also like the further development of Hal and Carol. They obviously still have this affection for one another, but balancing all of these threats, and her working for the Justice League and Hal still being in space, it's obviously very complicated.
They're just busy people. But again, their relationship is in a decent spot, and it's clear they love each other, and that's cool. That's very realistic. Couples get busy; they're not attached to each other's hip 24/7, right? And it's a very realistic relationship, I think.
Well, and let me draw a parallel here. We see a lot of celebrity couples that it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
And I've got to believe that a lot, or at least some of that, is due to the fact that being a celebrity, if you're a famous singer or actor or whatever, your job consumes a lot of your life. We hear about, singers being on the road 300 plus days a year. If that is who you are, and it demands so much of who you are, that doesn't always leave an adequate amount of time for a relationship.
Absolutely.
So if you're a superhero in one place and there's another superhero in another place, it's going to be difficult. So it makes sense that there would be a lot of bumps along the way.
I think a very realistic depiction of a relationship, whether it be an average relationship, not like a normal relationship, or a relationship between famous people. Yeah. So again, great for this issue. I don't have any problems. It's going to be,
like I said, I really like where this is going. I like the way that Jeremy Adams is using Kyle. I've also seen some fans online. They're like, yeah, he's not getting enough to do. I'm like, it's not his book. It's not all his book anyway. He's still being used.
Yeah, and he's being used, which is more than we can say for the last few years prior to this, right?
So, there's been times when he's had a few years here and there where he only makes little cameos. Yeah. He actually has a storyline here. So
exactly.
So don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Absolutely. And so I'm going to give it a 5 again across the board.
Yeah. So, by the way, I talked to Jeremy Adams briefly the other day because he did an unboxing video with a bunch of his upcoming comics, and I liked how his daughter was quizzing him on all the lanterns on the covers, and she's like, "Who's that lantern?" And he's like, he would answer. He's like, "Well, why is that lantern skin like that?" And he's like, "Well, it's an alien." She's like, "An alien from where?" And then she's like, "Did you create that character?" Huh?
He said, "Did you read the book?"
So she was quizzing him all. She's like, Why does their skin look like that? Where are they from? And did you create it or did somebody else create it? And if somebody else, who did create it? And I'm like, I like this girl.
That's hilarious.
She's keeping her dad on her toes.
That is hilarious. Yeah, so again, 5 across the board for me. And call me a homer if you want, I could care less. But yeah,
That's
all right.
well, that they don't call me the Emerald Enthusiast for no reason. I mean,
Well, you called
I'm kind of inclined to like. I don't like every Green Lantern story, but
you called yourself that. That's
well, now everybody else calls me that too.
Well, that's right. Yeah, that's true.
It's fitting either way.
I agree.
Yeah.
But yeah, all right. So we got one more book left. So let's.
Yes, we are going to jump on to Absolute Green Lantern #1. I got 4 variant covers of this, 5 in total.
Oh, really?
And
Robert got to by this breaking news.
Yeah, this is written by Al Ewing, and again, Absolute Green Lantern. This is taking place in the new Absolute universe.
Yeah,
it's a different art style, and it's also a different type of Green Lantern story. So if you pick this up and read it and some things don't make sense to you, that's because this is unfolding and it's with its own set of rules.
Yeah. It feels like feels very like a mystery. Like how can I put this? The tone, the vibe of it, I imagine is similar to what we're going to get in the Lanterns show. If that makes any sense at all to you.
Yeah, and I mean, there definitely is. There's a couple of different mysteries afoot here that obviously we don't get the answers to all of them in this issue.
Yeah,
and it opens up actually with Hal Jordan walking on the road, and he's got some kind of voice talking to him, and it says, "You are the absence of light. You are in the absence of light. I am the secret heart within every star. Be without fear, Hal Jordan. You must be without fear."
Right. Initially, my fan brain thought, "Oh, is it a Starheart scenario? Is it?"
Good point.
And then, as it progresses, it's probably something else.
Yeah, as it progresses, this is not what he has, and what he is dealing with is something that is obviously malignant, because a cop pulls beside him here, and again, he's out in the middle of the desert. He's just walking along the road. The cop's concerned about him, and we see that Hal has his hand in his pocket.
Yeah.
And so initially you think, okay, well, he's got his Green Lantern ring in his pocket. Maybe he doesn't want to show it, but the officer insists. He's like, he pulls his gun and he was like, "Show me your hand." And when Hal pulls out his hand, it is this completely black energy.
It's legitimately like a black.
It is like this version of Hal Jordan seems to be the Black Hand.
That's and when I think it's going to be, yeah.
When he pulls that out, it's like this void, and the officer is instantly just evaporated.
Yeah.
And it says Episode 1, The Black Hand.
So, I mean, kind of tells you where we might be going.
So now, at this point, the story cuts back to, this is Evergreen, and it cuts back to a diner.
Yes.
And we're seeing how he's having some water at the diner. And we also see that on the news, a giant Green Lantern symbol, a very tangible Green Lantern symbol, has landed in the middle of Evergreen.
Yeah.
And we see that there are helicopters, there's lots of destruction here, and we don't exactly learn what this is or why this is acting this way, because it doesn't seem to be a construct of anyone.
No, it's a literal Green Lantern.
It's a literal. It is the Green Lantern symbol come to life. Only it is just colossal.
It's huge.
Yeah. And so we get this. The story takes a step back. It says 5 days ago, and we see Hal, or the absolute version of Hal. They all seem to be very young here, talking to John Stewart and Joe Mullane.
I think they all know each other. in this.
Yeah, it seems like that. Not only do they know each other, that Guy Gardner, they know Guy too. They mention
And he's
him.
a cop at this point in this,
Hmm.
seemingly of some sort in this universe.
Yeah.
I like this flashback because A, it's nice that they know each other, and B, we get to see the event of what happened. Like of this lantern, the sort the what brought this lantern here, what got us here.
Mhm. And it also seems that maybe Joe has gone through a divorce because Hal questions her about wearing her wedding ring, and she gives him the stink eye. She's like,
Now
"This is not a conversation I want to have."
the way I read it, because she quit the force, and Guy keeps trying to get her to come back.
Hmm.
Could she have been married to Guy? Is that what I? Because that's kind of how I read it, but I could be.
Yeah, I mean, it remains to be seen exactly how here.
I could be wrong, but yeah.
But and when I say that, like how these characters relate to one another, because again, completely different continuity. It's a different universe here. So
It's a whole new ball of wax.
So we see a biker. Well, first of all, we see a group of bikers outside. They pass by the diner, but then another one comes along and crashes into this giant Green Lantern symbol.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is pretty brutal. I mean, he's just like a red smear on this thing by the way he hits it.
It's a little gross.
Hal rushes outside, and of course he's like, call an ambulance, and he's touching this giant symbol. And it seems maybe there's a correlation between this symbol and the black hand that we saw at the beginning of the story.
Right. I think there is, because I think Joe at some point must have touched it too.
Mm-hmm.
Just had a different reaction for her. But the cool thing is we find out the source of this giant lantern, and it is the absolute version of Abin Sur.
Abin Sur, which the first time I saw it, I thought, oh, that's St. Walker, because it has like the head tail.
The headpiece.
But it's Abin Sur. So, and he also has 4 arms.
And that's what I wanted to point out, is that he literally looks more alien than his mainstream universe counterpart. Like the mainstream universe counterpart, most of the alien beings look humanoid, right?
Mm-hmm.
This looks like an alien.
Right. Well, over time, there have been more, lots of more aliens developed over time. But initially, there weren't that many. But as we've gotten more planets and more alien races, they do look less humanoid.
The vibe, I guess, I'm getting from this book is like a cross between True Detective and the X-Files. Is kind of the vibe I'm getting. Which is why I say I think we could see this is. I think in terms of tone, I think this could have a lot in common with the Lanterns live action show that we're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
I think it could be that, but and the reason why I say when Hal touches it, it reacts to him differently, and I think Joe touched it because we see Hal breaking out into this black void, right? It's consuming him, kind of thing almost.
And it's interesting to see. So the story cuts back to the present, and Hal is in this diner, and he's obviously very disturbed. And he says, Abin Sur, he did something to me. He gave me something, gave me a weapon. And then all the patrons of this diner, they want to know what's in his pocket. Again, why is your hand in your pocket? And this guy named Earl actually pulls his hand out of his pocket. And again, we see that he has this literal black hand, and this energy just starts
to... Leave the man's hands in his pocket, damn it. Don't you learn your lesson?
Yeah, leave the guy's hand alone. And he's obviously struggling to control it. One of the patrons, I think it's actually the owner of the place. She actually takes a shot at him, which causes this black energy to erupt around this diner called May and Moe's.
Yeah. Well, I don't think May and Moe are going to make it out of here, if they're even still around.
And it seems like everyone in the diner dies. That once she does that there's this eruption of this malignant energy. And Hal is standing alone in this decimated diner.
Yeah. And then that's when we get at the end.
And that's when we get the door opens, and it's Joe, and she has Green Lantern energy around her. She's wearing the Green Lantern symbol, and she says, "What has happened to you?" And of course, the question immediately is, "Well, what happened to her?"
See, I think at some point they both touched the giant lantern, and it just reacted to them differently.
Yeah, and it affected her one way and affected him a different way.
So what is with this version of Hal's personality that potentially made him what we assume is a black hand or a black?
My initial reaction is, I mean, based on the way that he's reacting to this, I don't think that he's going to be the main villain of this story. I think he's going to fight it, and eventually we'll see that whether it's Abin Sur or whether it's somebody else other than Abin Sur, I get the feeling that there's, maybe Necron or some other villain is kind of pulling the strings.
Situation I don't think Hal's going to be the villain of the piece for sure.
But I really do like this anime style of art.
Yeah, it's anime, but it's not full anime. It's like a cross between mainstream comic, like superhero comic with a.
It's not so exaggerated that it's not enjoyable. It really does look good.
Yeah, it does work for the story. I really like this. Like I said, I like the tone in terms of it. Like I said, it being X-Files meets True Detective kind of feel. I like that it's different. But I also like that all the protagonists that are Green Lanterns in the main universe have a relationship and know each other and are friends, and I dig that. So I like the balance between familiar but also very brand new.
If you like Elseworld stories, then you're going to like this.
And so far, in terms of the Absolute universe, I'm loving it all. And this is another building block in that tapestry. So I'm going to go ahead and just because it's not a knock on the quality, but it's just because the story kind of left me with more questions and less answers at this point. I know it's only one issue. So for that reason, it's going to get a 4.5 for story.
Okay.
And a 4.5 for the art. That's where I'm at.
Okay. I'm going to go 5 and 5 on it. I thought I realized that there's going to be a lot of setup, and so I didn't expect too many answers.
Yeah.
But like I said, I really like the art. It's a different kind of style. It's a lot different than what we're getting from the main title in Green Lantern Corps. Yeah. So I'm really enjoying this, and of course we also have Green Lantern Dark, and there's just so many things going on right now for Green Lantern fans that
there's something for everybody. Even if you don't like one or the other, there's something for everybody.
It feels like where we were 15 years ago with so many titles going on at the same time and so much happening. So
I'm loving it, and I'm along for the ride on the Absolute Green Lantern for sure. So look forward to more. But that brings about the end of the show. Jam-packed show this week. We had a lot to cover, and so we hope you enjoyed it. We enjoyed bringing it to you. And if you want to keep the Green Lantern conversation going, you can on social media. Donnie, where do they track you down?
You can find me on Blue Sky and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok as the Emerald Enthusiast. Let's talk comics, let's talk collectibles, let's talk Green Lantern. And if you'd like to see lots of Green Lantern collectible reviews, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel.
If you want to find me, I'm still on the cesspool that is Twitter, but I'm also on Blue Sky, which I will link to in the description. We also have a Facebook group for the podcast network. Click the link in the description. I will add you. We can continue the conversation there. But since it was the debut of Absolute Green Lantern, I will say that Absolute Green Lantern is forever. From the first time we see Hal Jordan with his hands in his pocket to the last. So long, everybody.
So long, everyone.